Welcome to another video in the series, and today's topic is really interesting. And we will try to get in the deeper side of this concept. And this concept is often used almost everywhere. So, what is the concept that we are going to learn today? It is federation. This is what we are going to learn today. So, what is federation? Federation in the context of identity management. Okay, it's not like usual organizations federating, but this is from in the context of the identity management under our SC fundamentals. So it is a mechanism that allows user from one organization to access resources in another organization without needing separate credentials for each. For example, this will make it more clear. There is organization number one, there is an organization number two. All right, this is organization number one, this is organization number two. This organization has its own IAM mechanism, it has its own IAM mechanism. All right, now this organization has its users. Let me write it down like IAM mechanism. They have their own IAM mechanism. Now these users, we have users here, if try to access resources or application in organization 2 like this. Okay, then what needs to be entered on the login page? If they type their ID and password, it will not work because there would be a login window, right, which will ask for username or username and password, and what username password they need to type in so that they can access this resource. The very first thing is this IAM system needs to authenticate at this point in time because there is nothing between these two organizations. So we need to create the credentials here, and they need to type these credentials. So we need to create user and password and provide this username password to this guy so that he can type in here when the login comes and access these resource and application, which seems very cumbersome and a lot of issues with that we'll talk about. So the situations like this helps create something which is called federation. What do we mean by that? Well, the way we have explained, users from one organization or maybe domain access resources in another organization or a different domain without needing a separate credentials, because this is separate credentials than we are creating here. But because we have federation in picture, so we don't need to create a separate credentials, which means there is a handshake, which means there is a federation between these two organizations, and we call it a trust, which simply means when this user try to access this application or resources, so this login page which we have mentioned here, this login page will redirect the user to identify by this IAM. All right, and this IAM will provide a security token which would be verified by this IAM. Why? Because there is a trust, and then this user can easily access the application after the authentication. So that's how the federation works. So federation is the process of establishing trust between two identity system. This is identity system 1, this is identity system 2, and there is a federation. So all the users are using same credentials and getting access to this application resources in a different domain. Usually, in this kind of setup, there is always one is the identity provider, like this guy is the identity provider, the organization one, and this is a service provider. Usually, it happens in case of the federation, one is the IDP, and another one is service provider, because this is providing service with the help of application, maybe, right? So, in simpler terms, federation let you use your existing identity to access external services securely without juggling multiple usernames and password. It allows users to access resources in one domain using credentials from another trusted domain, right? So this is the concept, and I think this is pretty clear what we are doing here. The concept is explained. Now, let's see what are the benefits. Why exactly we want to do that? So we need to understand the usage, why we are trying to do that. Well, you can easily understand if users are going to use the same credentials, then we are trying to achieve something called single sign-on. Means users only need to sign in once using their home organization's credentials to access multiple applications, even those hosted in another company's environment or organization too in our case. So which means seamless access plus better user experience. Then users don't need to maintain a second set of credentials, so no password duplication, right? Which means fewer passwords, fewer password related issues or security risk, because users need to maintain same username passwords. Now, federation is based on mutual trust between the two identity provider, as you see, using using protocols like we have discussed this in previous videos, SAML or OpenID, or so only trusted tokens are exchanged, not the credentials. So secure access without compromising authentication control. So we can say secure trust model. Now, because new users from a partner organization can quickly granted access without needing to create or license and manage new accounts manually, which means fast provisioning and less admin overhead. So we can say easy user onboarding or offboarding, both, right? All right, now there could be one more benefit that we will be getting out of it is with no duplicate accounts and fewer password resets or access issues, the IT support team handles fewer tickets, which means saves time, reduce help desk burden, and improves the IT efficiency. So lower support overhead. All right. So these are certain benefits we are getting out of federation. And because of these things, we would like to achieve these things. We would like a seamless integration with less admin overhead. We want federation in place. Now let's try to understand it further with the help of a simple example, okay, or a scenario rather. Let me make this go. Now let's suppose this organization one is a large enterprise that uses Azure AD for identity management, which means we have Azure AD. What is Azure AD? This IAM is the Azure AD, because the organization one hosting the environment in Azure, and they have their internal Azure based project going on, right? Now they're working with an external vendor. So the organization two could be our external vendor, right? Whose employees need access to the portal to collaborate on project updates, documents, and timeline. So in this case, what's going to happen? The organization two users will try to access the organization one. Okay, because these are the vendor, they need the access on the organization one. Okay. Now, organization 2, it is again hosted on Azure AD. So they have their Azure AD as their IAM in their separate tenant, and they doesn't want to manage separate logins for organization 1 resources, right? So what is the solution here? Well, organization 1 add organization 2 users as guest users. So what are we trying to do here? We are trying to federate through Azure AD B2B collaboration. B2B federation or collaboration. That's what we are trying to do. By using, so this will allow organization 2 users to log in, these users, the users that we have here, to log in with their own Azure AD credentials without creating separate accounts in organization 1 directory. The same thing is happening. They can access this with their own credentials which are there in Azure AD. Same mechanism. So how exactly it will work? Organization 1 will add these user as a guest to their Azure AD, right here. This is the guest user that they have added, and assign them permissions. Maybe the permission to access the portal or whatever role that is needed to perform the task. So they will assign the permission to the guest user. Now, when this user, which is a guest user, uh, tries to log in with the help of organization 2 domain, for example, their domain would be user 1 at xyz.com. So when they put their ID xyz.com, when they log in, the organization's one, this organization's active directory will redirect the user to get authenticated with this IAM. The same process that we talked about earlier. The only thing is the user swapped and the service swapped. So once authenticated, Azure AD issues a token and allows him to access organization 1 portal. So that's how they can access. We took the example of Azure AD in different organization. Now we can take another example. In this example, we can take like organization 1 and organization 2 are two separate entities. Now we are talking about different example. We are taking the example of mergers because we quite see these things a lot. So maybe organization 1 merges with organization 2. So organization 1, which is here, merges with the organization 2, which is here. So this is organization 1 and this is organization 2. Now both has their own identity system. Okay, let's suppose organization 1 is the same, which has all the infrastructure on Azure. So they have Azure AD or Entra. An organization 2, let's suppose, is still running on premises and merges with organization 1. So what they have on premises, the usual things that we have, the AD, and they also have ADFS. AD and ADFS. ADFS is the Federation Service. Now, organization 1 acquires organization 2, and users from organization 2 need to access what? The organization 1's cloud application. That's how they would like to access cloud apps. Again, you could see organization 1 is acting as a service provider and organization 2 is acting as an IDP. You will understand that. So without migrating their identities to organization 1 or to this Azure AD, what we can do? We can simply do the federation. So instead of creating duplicate users in organization 1, Azure AD, organization 1 set up federation trust between this and ADFS, right? So again, what's going to happen? There would be, we are going to develop a trust between these two, or we call it federation. So how it will work? The user from organization 2 tries to access organization 1 applications. Azure AD detects that domain which is federated. The user will be redirected back to ADFS on organization 2. All right. And once authenticated, organization 2 ADFS sends a SAML token. Now, this guy will access through SAML token back to Azure AD. Now, Azure AD verified and will grant the access based on the received identity and its configured policies. Right. So that's how it will work. And we are getting all these things as you can see. So think of a federation as a maybe a passport control system where organization 1 doesn't issue a new passport to the user from the organization 2, but trust the passport issued by organization 2 as long as it's valid. So organization 1 grants them entry to their city or country, or at this time it's the application. So that's what the federation is. I hope you enjoyed learning and your concept is clear of the federation. Thank you for watching, and you guys have one